Warm welcome from my side to this session. My name is Joerg Marenk, and together with my colleague Reiner Markheiser, I'm going to present you that session. So at the beginning, of course, always a short disclaimer. Well, no, I jumped over that. So today we are also will share some information about future developments. At the moment, this is the state of planning what we are presenting there, and of course, this is always then subject to change. So maybe just that you know who we are, who is speaking to you. Short introduction from our side. My name is Joerg Marenk. I'm one of the two area product owners for Focus Build, and in that role, I'm responsible for the overall development strategy of Focus Build. Reiner, if you want to say a few words about you.
Yeah, thanks, Jörg. So my name is Reiner Markheiser. I'm also in the same team as Jörg, and but I'm responsible since a few months for this SAP Cloud ALM, and here as a product owner with also a focus on test management since 1 month.
Okay, but we are also not alone today in that session. So we have in the background, we have our colleagues Evan, Frank, and John also with us. So whenever you have questions to the content, or in general you have questions to Solution Manager, to Focus Build, to SAP Cloud ALM, then please use the chat functionality of the podcasting platform. Our three colleagues will try to answer all these questions. We will may have the chance at the end of the session also to answer some of the questions live, or maybe during the session then when we are also having some practical parts, also in that time, maybe we have the possibility to answer these questions. You have also seen in the agenda of the SAP TechEd the link to the GitHub. So in that GitHub, you will have all the information that you are requiring with regards to this session. So let me just quickly show you that. So this GitHub is including the link to the overview presentation. So everything that we are showing you in PowerPoint is then also available from this GitHub as PDF. So you have the possibility to download it from there. And as part of this workshop, we have also 2 exercises where you have the chance, maybe directly during the session, or then after that session, or in the upcoming weeks, to play around and to execute the things that we are presenting you. So for that, we have also 2 systems in place, one Solution Manager, one SAP Cloud ALM. You have the possibility from this GitHub to jump to these 2 systems. So for the first exercise that is dealing with Solution Manager with Focus Build, you can then navigate to this Solution Manager. I have prepared also users that you can use, so the user information are also available in the GitHub, and also the password, which is for all of these users welcome. And for SAP Cloud ALM, the same. You have also there the detailed description of the exercise linked as a PDF document there as well, but also the link then to the launchpad of SAP Cloud ALM. And for SAP Cloud ALM, we just have one user that can be shared by all the participants, and the password for the user is here mentioned also calm22 #1. So all this information is present from the GitHub. The systems itself, the current plan is that we are having them live until the end of the year, so that you really have the chance to perform the exercises and to play around also a little bit whenever you have the time for that. Okay, so what are we going to present you in the upcoming 120 minutes? So at the beginning, I'm going to speak about the SAP offerings with regards to application lifecycle management, so which tools are actually available. And as you have maybe already have recognized, so we are talking about Solution Manager with Focus Build. So I'm going to present you there the architecture. We will have in that session this year, we will have a focus on the reporting and analytics capabilities. So for that, Reiner and me prepared very familiar use case that every customer is at the end facing in the course of an implementation project. And then just simply the question, when you want to do this exercise as part of the project, which options do you have in both tools? And so we will have there also a demo, and we also have there an exercise. And for SAP Cloud ALM, it's quite similar. So also there, overview that you get, first of all, an introduction if you are completely new to the topic. And then also Reiner is focusing then on the analytics capabilities, and as part of an end-to-end implementation process, also which traceability options you have to report on the different entities in Cloud ALM. And also there we have demos prepared, and we have also an exercise there. And at the end, we have then included some more information for you, where you have then the possibility to find out more things, deeper look at both tools. Okay, so let's start with the SAP ALM offerings. And there, as said, we have Solution Manager. And when we are talking there about Solution Manager, we have also included there 2 add-ons that are sometimes mentioned separately, but from a because technically these are add-ons to the Solution Manager, but from a license perspective, they are completely included. So Focus Build and Focus Insights are 2 technical add-ons to Solution Manager, which are in the usage rights included. So SAP Solution Manager is, and Focus Build and Focus Insights are focusing on on-premise or hybrid solutions, and Focus Build, where we are focusing now also in that session, is offering a complete end-to-end process from starting from the requirement over the development, the build of an implementation, over the test, up to the deployed and the go live, and also then the operations part. And it's a very, let's say, grown methodology that has been also used by customers over the last years, with a certain level of complexity, but also a proven process, I would say, in the for implementation projects. And we have on the other side, what we are also presenting here is SAP Cloud ALM, where we clearly have the focus on cloud solutions. So here, I wouldn't call SAP Cloud ALM anymore the new kid on the block. So also this tool is now available on the market for several years. It's from a functionality perspective, it's also let's say growing system. So the focus is on implementing cloud-centric solutions with a pre-configured and content-driven guided workspace, integrated with SAP Activate methodology and best practices, and clearly focusing on cloud solutions. Nevertheless, you can also use it for hybrid solutions. So if you still have on-premise systems like an S/4HANA Private Cloud Edition, for example, then this is also something where you can use actually SAP Cloud ALM. So this question comes in quite often when you actually choose which ALM solution. So here we have then included some use cases. So when you have an on-premise centric solution and you also plan to keep that, then of course, clear guidance is to use SAP Solution Manager. If you have a cloud-centric solution or a cloud-only solution, then of course, the right choice would be SAP Cloud ALM. If you have a very small standard on-premise solution, then you can also go for SAP Cloud ALM, because as said, SAP Cloud ALM is also able to cover all the functionalities which is required to control such an on-premise solution. For example, also transport handling for an on-premise system is possible with SAP Cloud ALM. And if you are a customer that is moving to the cloud or to a standardized ALM, then you either have the choice. You can either use SAP Solution Manager and partly make a transition then to SAP Cloud ALM, or you directly choose also to use SAP Cloud ALM. So here you have a little bit for all the scenarios, of course, you have the choice, but for the last one, it's either that or that, what you can do. Then also big question that is coming up: how long is the maintenance plan for SAP Solution Manager? And here we just had 3 or 4 weeks ago the ALM summit in EMEA, where our SVP Mark here also has presented that slide. So that's why I can now also give here this clear statements or repeat the clear statements about the maintenance strategy. And their focus build, or the solution manager with focus build, it is following the maintenance strategy of the business suite, which means to the end of 2027, there is the mainstream maintenance of SAP Solution Manager. Then from the end of 2027 up to the end of 2030, we will have the extended maintenance for Solution Manager. And even if you say, okay, we want to keep our Solution Manager for a longer period and even beyond 2030, this will be still possible then in customer-specific maintenance. So then you will have an individual agreement with SAP. So whenever there is then a new bug, for example, upcoming, then it's based on this individual contract, how the support looks like for Solution Manager. Also, clear statement here, we do not plan any further releases after Solution Manager 7.2. And there's also no plan to add a new on-premise product in the ALM portfolio from our side. Besides that, we have SAP Focus One and also SAP Cloud ALM. They are not dependent on the SAP Business Suite, meaning for them, we have the support also beyond 2030. So there, if you start now leveraging there the functionalities from SAP Cloud ALM, then you will have for the next 10, 15 years, no problems with any maintenance restrictions. So how should then look, how does the transition strategy should look like when you are right now using SAP Solution Manager and you say when to adopt maybe to SAP Cloud ALM? So here also clear statement for service and operations, you can already adopt SAP Cloud ALM right now. So you will get their immediate benefits from that with less effort for the updates and agent administration, for example. Functional enhancement for cloud products will be instantly also then available in SAP Cloud ALM, and you will also have the access to the service and support network with all the data lake functionalities with machine learning and also with the artificial intelligence integration. With regards to SAP Cloud ALM for implementation, there you can actually choose your own pace. So if you are in the middle of the transformation, for example, to SAP S/4HANA, it would be a bad idea if you are in the middle of the project now to change the implementation methodology and move there to a complete new tool. So if you are in the middle of such a project, finish it with Solution Manager and Focus Build, and then start analyzing how SAP Cloud ALM fits into your landscape. So maybe you are in big usage of SAP Solution Manager, but there's maybe a certain cloud product what you want to implement. And maybe it makes sense for this small implementation project of a cloud product to use there then SAP Cloud ALM for this project. So this is something with what our customers doing and which is also the recommendation from our side. Okay, so let's come to Solution Manager and Focus Build. And there I want to do at the beginning also give some information or some general remarks about the tools. So from the amount of customers, Focus Build is still increasing. So there are still new customers coming to us. So the slide is now 4 weeks old, maybe. In the meantime, we have over 1,800 customers that are using Focus Build. And in general, we can really say, we can proudly say that the customer satisfaction is very high with our tool. So you see here in the easy to resolve, support in incidents, and the overall product satisfaction, very, very good numbers. You see also that we have more and more customers coming in. The amount of tickets that we receive with bugs that customers are reporting is decreasing. So by 20% year over year. This is also related to some initiatives that we have taken. So there were support packages where we didn't implement too much new functionality, but where we said, okay, we really focus on quality. That is now the outcome of that. So we will receive less incidents from customers. But nevertheless, still we are also investing in new functionalities, because it's also sometimes a question, is Solution Manager and Focus Build, is it a dying horse or a dead horse or whatever? And here also clearly, no, it isn't. So we are still investing. We are providing new functionalities. We had in 2021 also a custom connection program. So we received from our customers innovation requests, and there was a certain process. So other customers must vote for these innovation requests. And when they were qualified, which means at least 15 other customers found that innovation request good, then the goal was then to take this over in our backlog. And also here then the mission was to at least fulfill minimum 70% of these qualified requests. And that is something that we achieved with the last two support packages. So with support package 9 and support package 10, we have delivered more than 70% of this requested feature requests from our customers, and we will use also these the ones which we haven't fulfilled up to now, also for the upcoming SP. So we will invest also in Solution Manager and Focus Build also in the upcoming months. Okay, so let's start with the Focus Build. So let's go a little bit in the technical part of that presentation. And for those participants here in that session that are not that familiar with Focus Build, I would like to start with the high-level architecture of Focus Build, and also to show you a little bit the certain the integration model of Solution Manager and Focus Build. So we have inside Solution Manager, we have two standard functionalities that we are leveraging also then from Focus Build side. There's on the one hand side the process management. So here the possibility for the customers to document their business processes that they have in place. And we have on the other side project management. So here you have the possibility based on also, for example, SAP Activate content to import project plans, which you then just extend with specific information about waves and sprints that you want to use in your implementation project, so that you have also some kind of project handling and timeline information also inside the Solution Manager. So let's assume you want to start with the implementation of SAP S/4HANA. You can use there some best practice content. So standard process modeling that was performed based on the projects that SAP has driven also in the past. And these best practice content, these best practice processes, you can evaluate whether they are fitting to your requirements or to your demands. And if this is the case, then perfect. You just implement at the end the standard functionality in SAP S/4HANA. If it is not completely fitting, then you have the possibility directly to attach to these process steps here the requirements. So if you say, okay, the standard process looks like that, but we want to change it that it really fits to our needs, then you create the requirement. You fill then this requirement with information, what exactly you want to have changed in the system, and then you create one or several work packages out of that, depending on the size, of course, of the requirement. The work package will be then assigned to a wave that you also have the information, okay, when this work package is going to be implemented. And then you upload to the work package information about the future design, how it should be implemented in the system, and also how it should be tested. So also test cases can be assigned to this work package. The good thing is the architect that is usually working on such a work package is uploading these design documents and these test cases to the work package. And as we have linked the related business process step already at the beginning, and this information is also copied over from the requirement to the work package, the system knows, okay, these design documents and these test cases are related to this business process step. So this is then happening at the automatically in the background, and the architect does not need to search inside the process documentation, upload there the documents. No, he's just working in the work package, and system is automatically assigning these documents to the right place in the solution documentation. After that has been done, the work package is split up into one or several work items, again, depending a little bit on the size. Work item is assigned to sprints. So if you are in a kind of agile way of implementation, This is also fully covered with Focus Build. And then when the implementation has been done, so transport requests have been created, the content has been transported to the quality assurance system, for example, then we will reuse the information of the provided test cases, then also in the test suite environment. So you're creating their test plans, test packages for the different types of testing that you're doing. Speaking about acceptance tests, speaking about a single functional test, regression test, functional integration test also at the end. And also, of course, these test suite information are linked at the end to a wave. And of course, reporting and analytics is then also always a topic. And the good thing here is the different user roles that we have in such an implementation project, developer, architect, tester, etc. They are working in their individual environments, in their different applications. And in the background, these information are collected by the system. And these information are then provided to the different dashboards that we have inside Focus Build. So there's no need for manual maintenance, for example, of Excel sheets or whatever. So this is just then the example how the requirement, work package, and work item are related to each other. You see there is a lot of automated actions. So when you, for example, change a work package from created to scoping, then the related requirement will be automatically updated. So these things are then happening in the background. Really tight, integrated process flow, and makes, of course, then the life a little bit easier for the involved people, because they don't have to deal with, okay, when I'm now working on this work package, I'm updating the work package. Do I need to update then the requirement? No, it's happening automatically by the system. The systems or the recommended system environment that we have in Focus Build is always a 4-system landscape. So we recommend, so the sandbox system, maybe let's keep that a little bit out of scope. So we are focusing in Focus Build on the development, quality assurance, pre-production, and production system. So an additional sandbox system, of course, could be helpful during the analysis whether the standard best practices provided by SAP and standard functionality is really fitting to your individual demands. But of course, we are developing our content in the development system. Unit test will be performed on the quality assurance system. If that was successful, we will have the acceptance test and single functional test inside the QAS system. If this was successful, then we hand it over to the pre-production system to have their stable environment where we can perform the functional integration test and the regression test before we then make the deployment to the production system. Okay, as said, we are focusing on the on dashboards and on analytics in that session here today. So which dashboards do we have actually in place inside Focus Build? So we have there, the first one is the solution readiness dashboard. So here you get the overall status about your project, which is ongoing. So it provides all the information about project tasks, so which ones are actually completed, which ones are open, which are overdue. You see the amount of work packages, work items that have been created as part of that project. You see also what is actually overdue with regards to documentation, so which design documents are missing, which test cases are missing, things like that you see from the solution readiness dashboard. And this one is actually the one where the project managers or program managers are working in. The document reporting dashboard, here we have another, let's say, kind of information that we want to check. So we want to check the current status of the implementation from a business process perspective. So here you can really select individual business processes and can then check, okay, which requirements, work packages, or work items have been created already for that, and have all the documentation that we require. So there are KPIs for that in place, KPIs that we are pre-delivering. So we have pre-delivered content here, but you can also add your individual KPIs, for example, and this information is then also visible whether these KPIs have been fulfilled or not. And the third test suite dashboard on that side the third dashboard on that side is the test suite dashboard. As the name is saying, this is the one where the test managers and test coordinators are actually working in. So here you get all the information about the ongoing test phase. For example, there are different cards in place about defects that are critical, so very high or high defects, test executions where you have errors, so critical test executions, the progress about the test status, for example, and the progress also over a certain period, all the kind of information you get there. And we have for this test suite dashboard, this overview page to get a first view on the current test phase, but also a lot of detailed pages that allow more granular information. You're going to see that. And with regards also to invests that we are doing in Focus Build, so the solution readiness dashboard is currently in a complete rework. So we hope that we then can ship with one of the next support packages. Current plan is SP12 to ship there the newest, the new solution readiness dashboard. This document reporting dashboard was introduced with support package 7. Just for your information, right now we have SP10 available for our customers, and we are in the middle of the test phase right now for SP11, which is planned to be released at the beginning of 2023, so at the end of January or beginning of February 2023. And the test suite dashboard has already been completely reworked with support package 10, so there the newest version is available in the latest support package. But we are not done so far, so we have more dashboards in place. So we have the release dashboard. So here, this is an environment especially for system administrators or release managers where they can see, okay, what's going on more from a technical or from a system perspective. So it shows you also the different systems that are available in the landscape. You see then also there the transports. So how many transports have been created in the development system, how many have been released, how many have been imported then in the follow-up system. So there you would then also see whether there's a mismatch. So let's assume you have released 30 transport requests from the development system, but only 28 have been imported into the quality assurance system. Then there is already an indicator that something is not working completely right in the landscape. Also here we have then in the detailed pages also some ratings for the different documents. So also here again we are checking for the KPIs that are in place so that you can really ensure a proper documentation, testing, and also then here the link to the transport management information to really have the upcoming release in a, let's say, green and clear status. And the last dashboard that I've included here is the progress dashboard for the readiness check integration. So we have for a couple of support packages now the possibility in place to upload the SAP readiness check. If you're doing a system conversion from ECC to SAP S/4HANA, you can perform their readiness check. This readiness check can be imported into Focus Build. And then you use that as the starting point for your requirement to deploy process, the simplification items and activities. And also we have for that environment a progress dashboard in place so that you have their burn down chart to see how is the involvement of the progress of the processing of the simplification items and conversion activities. Also, the release dashboard has been reworked, so there we have shipped the newest version with support package 9 to overcome there some performance issues and all that stuff that we have seen in the old version of the release dashboard. Okay, I already mentioned that with SP10 we have released the newest test suite dashboard. So a new version was delivered. We are focusing there on the usage of standard Fiori elements. So you must know that Focus Build was introduced back in 2016, and there when this original test suite dashboard was developed, there of course it could not have these functionalities that the standard Fiori elements now actually can provide, and that's why a complete redesign actually made sense, as we are now using standard Fiori elements instead of individual developed ones. We have a better functional scope, of course, first of all. So we can leverage their really good things from these theory elements, but of course we have also better performance and a better stability at the end. And this is one of the, of course, of the main benefits that this redesign is also then bringing. The good thing is also, you see here the big label customer connection. When we have decided to create this new test suite dashboard, there was no customer connection program actually running. But we already had in mind something what we can do. Of course, we are also talking to customers and partners all the time. And then when the customer connection program actually was launched, then we received a lot of feature requests that we have already included in this new test suite dashboard. So we have adaptable overview pages, we have interactive detail pages. So the different type of users, the different type of test managers or test coordinators that you have, they really can also create their own variants of the displayed information. So they can configure how it is displayed, so which type of chart is actually used. They can also decide which type of information do they want to include in these charts or in the below tables that are also displayed there. So really easy to manage, really easy also to individual manage that. And then it can be also shared with other users. So if there's someone seeing, okay, that's a cool feature or cool information that you are getting displayed there, you have the possibility to exchange that information with other users. Then this navigation paradigm in the test suite dashboard will be also nearly the same than for the new test suite, for the new solution readiness dashboard. So we have there a filter and variant management in place. So we have different filters, and you can then also save these filters so that if you're saying, okay, I'm a test coordinator just for that specific project, I always want to have that in the scope of my test suite dashboard, then just save this as a filter variant. Then, as said, we have these overview pages with different cards. You also have the possibility there to hide cards which are not of interest for you. You can also rearrange them very, very easy. And of course, you can jump in the detail pages. And there, it's then even more flexible what you actually can do there. And also in these detail pages, you have the possibility to create your own variants to really personalize the user experience at the end for you, that you only see and can focus on what is important for you. Okay, and this I want to show you also quickly in the system. So I'm jumping to our demo system for that. I'm going to the role as a test manager. And here we have the test suite dashboard. So I focus now on a specific solution. You also can maintain here individual test plans for which you want to start the analysis, but I want to do it here in a, let's say, more open way to have also more data included in this test suite dashboard. Okay, and then you see here, okay, the first card that we see here is the critical defects sorted by priority. So here we have the defects which are currently existing in priority high and very high. Right now, here are 4 ones displayed. If you want to see then more, you have the possibility here via this cursor then to extend that you also see then more lines for that specific card. So that's very easy to achieve that. The defect status is also a card that we have in place. So here you see directly on the first view how many very high or medium tickets or defects we have in place, and you see also which status do they currently have. And here also we have the option to jump into the details. So let's check the defect status more in detail. Go. And then you have here the information then displayed. So how many defects do we have in that are in status confirmed? So this is at the moment 5. We have 1 which is in process, and the priority to that is medium. If we scroll down here a little bit, using here a rather small screen. It's maybe why it's not looking that good, but for the presentation, of course, for you, it's easier than to read there also something. And we have right now 4 defects in priority high, which are in status new, and we have 1 which is a very high defect. And then below we have the table, and here you would also have the possibility to jump then directly from this from the test suite dashboard into the defect details. So let's go one step back and check maybe then also the test status. By the way, you can also rearrange that cards simply by drag and drop. So this would be also possible. If you say the test status for me is more important than the defect status, of course, then just move it up. And here, let's check the test status maybe as a last example in the test suite dashboard. So here we see right now the different test plans. So you see here we have 1 test plan for acceptance test order to cash. We have 1 for solution validation. We have here a demo test plan, and we see that we have there different test cases included. So here are 4 test cases right now which are untested. We see that here with the coloring also. For the other one for the solution validation, we have 2 test cases which are in the status being processed, while 1 is right now untested. By the way, also a big demand from customers was also that you can do here reporting on not just 1 test plan. This was a limitation in our old test suite dashboard that we could only focus on 1 test plan all the time. Here you would have the possibility to select multiple test plans to have an overall reporting about all the different testing that is ongoing. Maybe you have a big implementation project and you have then 1 test plan for finance, you have 1 test plan package for a test plan for master data, things like that. And you want to have an overall reporting. This is possible now with the new test suite dashboard. Okay, as said, the way how it is presented is easy to adjust. So let's maybe just focus here on the display. And if you say, okay, I want to have here a different kind of chart, then you could also move it here to a pie chart. Then it looks like that. Doesn't make sense now too much because now I have for the individual test plans, then also the different test cases. So then it makes sense maybe to remove the test plan as a dimension. And I say, okay, now I get the overview about all the test cases independent from the test plan that are ongoing. And then you see, okay, right now I have 27 test cases overall in my project, which are untested. I only have 3 that are okay. And I have like 4 here, which have an error. So that's already quite good information that I get out of that. And whenever you say, okay, back to what was originally presented by SAP, you can always also restore the display. And then you get the pre-delivered shipment with the stacked bar chart. And you could then also include here more information. If you say, okay, test plan information is quite good, but I also want to know the test cases and the test packages that are included there, then you can add them here in this variant maintenance, and then you get also this information here displayed. And if we would then also check then in the lower part here in this tabular display, you could also add this information about test case and test package. And then you would also have this information then here in place. And from here, you can do all the reporting. Even if this is not sufficient enough, you still have the possibility also to export this, for example, to an Excel sheet. Okay, this as a short introduction in the test suite dashboard. The solution readiness dashboard that we are currently completely redeveloping will look like in a similar way from the way of handling all the information. Okay, the release dashboard, as said, released with SP09. There we have also the different cards. So you have the possibility to select information about the import queues. You get an overview information about the selected release. You have the directly predefined queries where we said, okay, this is something which is quite a valid information. That's why we make a quick jump into that selection to get easier to that information that you are actually looking for. And then inside these detail pages, we have then also these different ratings in place, where we, based on delivered KPIs, then also display the information why a certain document is ranked, for example, as green without errors or as red with errors. So this is something that we provide. Okay, and now we are coming to the part of the exercise. So what we actually want to demonstrate then, and what you then can also play around with in the system, is we want to check, first of all, the acceptance test that is currently ongoing. So in that status, when a work package, which has been split up into several work items, and all the related work items have been completely processed, so they have been set to successfully tested, means the unit test from the developer was successful. Then we need to do, as a next step, the acceptance test. And there is then the question, which work packages are actually ready for the acceptance test. And then, of course, you want to get the overview, which work packages have been successfully tested in that acceptance test. So this would be something that you would like to find out from the system. And then, if that has been performed, the next step would be which work packages are actually ready to be included into the functional integration test. And this is in focus build then also the point where the deployment preparation to the pre-production system and later on also to the production system takes place, so that work packages that have been successfully tested, do we have there all the related documentation also in place? And if that is the case, then we can perform the status switch to the handover to release, which then means, okay, then we can deploy it to the pre-production system first, and then after successful functional integration test, we can do then also the deployment into the production system. For that, we are using two functionalities inside Focus Build. The first one is the assignment analysis. There we select a test plan for the acceptance test and expand there the test case level. I'm going to demonstrate it to you in the system. And then the action which we are taking from there is we select the work packages where the overall test status is green, so where the acceptance test has been performed successfully, and we will and we can then update the selected work packages and change their status to successfully tested. And then in the second step, we are going to use the release dashboard. As said, we are checking there the readiness for the functional integration test. So we select work packages which are in status successfully tested, where we have a green rating for the documents, where we have a green rating for the performed tests, and also a green rating for the transport requests. And from there, we can then jump to the mass change application that we have in place and change that status from successfully tested to hand it over to release. And this is something that I'm going to demonstrate to you. So therefore, I'm jumping to the TechEd demo system. So I'm logged on here with one of these example users, DT180 -00 in that case. And I'm jumping, first of all, to the Focus Build Test Manager area. And here we have the test plan management assignment analysis. Okay, then there will be a new tab opened. And here you select the project for S/4HANA Private Cloud Edition. So it is an example project for the transformation to PCE. And we are focusing on the wave 1. And here we can then jump to the assignment analysis. You can, by the way, ignore these warnings here on the right upper side. And here we have that button where you actually can load the test plan. And in preparation for the TechEd session, I have created here an acceptance test plan for this conversion project wave 1. And here you can then go to the test package details, and then you see inside such an acceptance test plan, we have created for every individual work package one test package. So this is a one-to-one relationship, which also then means if the test package is rated as an error, the related work package is also getting then a certain status, which is called in repair, so that you also see that there is a relationship to that. And if the test package is rated successfully, then this also means then that the related work package has been successfully acceptance tested, and we can then continue with the processing of this work package. So to see the test case status, you need to click here on expand test case level, and then you get here the overall status. So if we expand this a little bit, overall status for this test package, and there you see, let's maybe make that also a little bit bigger to see the individual work package IDs that we have for this 13378. The rating is green. For the 13379, it's the same, while the other work package here, 13383, which is also in status to be tested, there the overall status is right now yellow, so it's still in process. So there we don't have the successful, or we don't have the confirmation for the successful test. So therefore, I'm now selecting here this 13378, or this 13379, and maybe also here this 19150. So I will not take all of these ones which are successfully tested here, because I want also to keep some data for you to analyze this also in the system. And we have then here the possibility to update these work packages. So there's a direct jump here in place. This is opening our mass change application, really powerful application where you can do then mass update for different document types, for requirements, work packages, work items, and so on. And what I'm going to do now here is I'm going to change now the status from to be tested to successfully tested. And by doing that, I'm now confirming, after I click here then on save, it's also saved into the database, that the acceptance test actually for these work packages was successful, and also change was performed. So you see here the green lights indicating that. It means, okay, for these work packages, we have now we can now continue with the next step, which would be then the takeover in the next release. So checking has all the documentation been provided, and the next step would be then to set in also the status handed over to release. But before we are doing that, we need to go first of all to the release dashboard. So therefore, switching now here to the release manager in the Solution Manager Launchpad. And here I can open the release dashboard from here. And right now, then you select here the S/4HANA landscape upgrade and release 1.0.0. By the way, all this information, what I'm clicking here, is also available in these PDF documents that we have included in GitHub. And then you see, okay, here for that release that I have just selected, we have right now 41 work packages. We have also, as said, these predefined queries here. So I actually want to focus now on the successfully tested ones. So I could directly jump from here to these successfully tested, or as it is described in the PDF document, you would just open here this work package card, and then you can filter here via that status F4 help. So here you can check for work packages that are in that status successfully tested. That would be also an option to do it like that. Okay, and then you see we have here then different work packages in place. Maybe let's sort them here also via the ID. And then we have the ones that we just updated starting from the assignment analysis. So 13378. You see here we have then a green rating for the documents that have been assigned, for the tests that have been performed, and also for the transports. If you want to check that more in detail, you can do this. So you just marked in here one line, and then you say jump to rating details. And then you can check, okay, can see here for the work package 13378, status successfully tested. The rating is green because it has reached that status successfully tested, and we have an related test packages. We have a related test package which is also rated as green. That's why we have an overall test rating here for green. Also with the documents, you see them here. Okay, we have here a functional specification in place, which has been assigned, which has been also already released. So this is also going to be checked here by these KPIs and then presented here in that rating. So this is actually an example where it looks good. So this work package can be included in our next release. So now I clicked one step too much. That's why it lost here the filter. So let's set this filter again. Okay, and where we have here a work package with a problem is this one here, because here for that one we have a red rating for the document, and if we check that, for example, in detail, then we would see, okay, status test and transport rating is green, so everything is good. But for the documentation that has been provided, we have a red rating because the functional specification has not been released. So this is a status for the documentation that is also saying, okay, this functional specification has been completed, and we have also the test case assigned, which has also been not released so far. So there is the question, why is it like that? And it seems that we have here a little bit of problem with the filter. But anyway, if we open this work package to make there the cross check, we can then see, if we go, for example, to the documentation, then we see, okay, we have here a functional specification, but it's still in progress. And we have here also a test case assigned, which is also in progress. So the rating is correct. And now it would be the task of the architect, for example, to release that documents, also to state then, okay, they are in the final status before we can make the move for these different work packages. So let me set here for the last time that status successfully tested. Before we then can say, okay, we are taking over these 4 work packages. So selecting them, then we could jump to the mask change again to make then the status update to include them into the next release by setting the status handed over to release. So this would be then here the next step by setting this status. So also here that one I wanted just to mention how you would continue then with this selection, but I will not do this so that you also have some data in place inside the system. Okay, so I go back to the presentation, and I would now say let's have 5 minutes for those of you who want to perform this exercise. And for those of you who say, okay, I want to do this exercise later, you will have the chance now to grab a short drink. And I will just check in parallel the questions that have been coming in. And let's see whether there are some questions that I can also answer now directly live. Okay, so there was one question, where we still support IT service management with Solution Manager. Yes, we do. So there's also a lot of questions coming in regarding the transition from Solution Manager to SAP Cloud ALM. So of course, the central statement is there will be no successor, no on-premise successor of SAP Solution Manager. So there will be no release 7.3 or 8.0 or whatever. So Cloud ALM is the go-to platform for all our customers, but of course on an individual speed. So we have, for example, a customer where I'm also heavily involved in. They are using Focus Build right now heavily for the S4 transformation. So there's an overall strategy or agenda for that customer for the different projects that they have until 2026. So they are currently developing in S4HANA a template and this template will be finished until 2024, and then they will roll out it to all the different countries, plans, and so ever. And of course, they will use Focus Build for that because they are started this 2019, so 3 years back. And as said, it doesn't make sense now to switch there to SAP Cloud ALM, independent whether the functional scope of SAP Cloud ALM is ready or not for that. But in parallel, they are also having the first cloud product implementations, and for that they are now starting then also using SAP Cloud ALM. So it's not like that when you have Focus Build in place for one project that you need to use Focus Build and Solution Manager for all the other projects that are ongoing in your company. So if you have that small implementations for a cloud product, then use SAP Cloud ALM. It's part of your contract, and then you can already evaluate what is possible with SAP Cloud ALM. And we also strongly recommend not really to compare Solution Manager and Focus Build with the functional scope of SAP Cloud ALM, because it also doesn't make sense to provide inside SAP Cloud ALM the same way of working as in Focus Build, because for the cloud world, it must be in a different way. Not that highly integrated or tight integrated. So maybe some more freedom, because you're also in the cloud products, you are not starting directly with developing new content or to modify something. So you're more going back more to standard things, and then of course it also makes sense to handle these standard way of usage then also in a standard way inside application lifecycle management. Okay, so I've talked a lot about the available dashboards inside Focus Build. Still, we cannot fulfill all requirements from customers with regards to analytics. So that's why we have introduced also 2 support packages back, the integration to SAP Analytics Cloud. So we are offering a collection report, which is moving regularly data then from Solution Manager to SAP Analytics Cloud, so SAC. That covers the whole requirement to deploy process, including requirements, work packages, work item, as well as test suite data. And then you can, inside the SAC, you can then create your own dashboard. So here, these are some real examples that we have also created together with SAP project leads that were coming to us and saying that what you have in Solution Manager is not sufficient for our reporting. And then we evaluated together with then the integration to SAC, and we have then created individual reporting capabilities, but based on real project data inside the SAC, and then they were happy with that possibility. So you need for that, of course, a subscription to SAC, so that's not included inside the Solution Manager usage rights. Okay, and then at the last point before I then hand over to Reiner for the SAP Cloud ALM part is I want to at least show you quickly the new solution readiness dashboard that we are currently developing. It's a lab preview also, but real system also that where I will demonstrate to this, or where I will demonstrate it. Again, also here from the look and feel, it's quite close to the test suite dashboard. So we have there an overview page with different cards. The cards can be rearranged the way that you require it. You will then also have the possibility later on in a later version, of course, when we ship it, then finally to jump to the detail pages. So what I'm going to present to you now is the latest stage where all the overview pages, overview cards have been developed. The jump to the detail pages is still in development. And yeah, I have included also in that presentation here that you can download from the GitHub the different information about how going to work. So as said, close to the test suite dashboard with adaptable overview pages, configurable chart visualizations, page variants, etc. All this stuff can be created. And then the different cards are explained. As I don't want to do this just on slide level, I will just jump over these slides so you can just have a look then later on, and I will demonstrate it inside the system. I think that's more value for you. So therefore, I'm just checking whether I'm still connected. Okay, this looks good. It's loading the data. All right. Okay, so this is the new solution readiness dashboard. So I have selected here a main project. I could limit down now also here to a specific build project. So here in that example, we have a main project with 3 assigned build projects. So this PGH main, this build 1 and build 2 acceptance test. You see also that we have here different severities for these projects. So 2 of them are okay. For 1, it is not set, and 1 seems to be very critical. You also see the assigned project leads. We could also change here the overall status for specific, to see it for specific waves. And then you see, okay, the duration for the first wave of our PGA main project is from middle of October last year until the end of December, or middle of December in 2021. The wave 1 of this main project here is has the same timeline. That would be information that you could see here. And also you can extend here the information that are displayed to see then also for the other build projects and the other waves, this kind of information. Okay, then we see here also the requirements. So how many requirements do we have right now in progress? So this is our test system. That's why we have here quite a lot of requirements also created in progress. We have right now 59 unassigned requirements we have in the system, more than 2,000. So as said, it's our test system. So, and a lot of stuff is created there. Then we have here one work package, one card for the work package. So you see how many work packages here are in development, are in scoping, are in successfully tested, or are in created. And you see also the ratio of the scope changes. So also that valuable information that you see, okay, do we have a lot of scope changes? 5% is rather low. That's why it's also stated here as a green figure. If there would be then more than 10 or more than 20% of scope changes, then it would change to yellow or to red, indicating that there's a lot of additional stuff then always coming in and always requested, for example, from your customer. And it's also then an indicator that the original planning maybe was not that good. So for the work item, you also see how many are in development or successfully tested or created. You see also project tasks, how many are overdue, how many have already been completed. You could then jump later on when we have these detail pages directly from here to this overdue project tasks, and then you could take some action, for example, taking them in progress or completing them. Then we have also here a card with the work package distribution. So you can also check, for example, which work packages, how many work packages do we have per wave. This would be then information that is displayed here. We have also the work item distribution. You see, we have quite a lot of work items in our build 1 project, while we have not so many work items in our build 2 project. Would be then also something that you could analyze more in detail, and you see also in which status these work items are. Then the progress for work items or the progress for work packages is also displayed. I think a good indicator to see, do we have a certain type of improvement over time? Do we get more work items and more work packages finished? You see also we have open risks also in such kind of matrix of impact and probability level, and also in different priorities. So that's also quite a good indicator about the risks that are in place for that project. KPI status, as said, we are delivering there some predefined content. So for example, KPI for function specification available or test case availability. And here you see quite a lot is overdue. So we don't have training material or test cases in place, or the test cases have not been released, for example. So you could then jump from here again to the detail pages and then take actions. For example, talk to the architects that they are releasing their test cases. Issues are also displayed, and we have also said the solution readiness dashboard is more relevant for the program manager or project lead. That's why it also makes sense to include there some information that we would also see in the test suite dashboard, so that we have in one environment here in the solution readiness dashboard information about all the things that are ongoing with regards to the project, and testing, of course, is there an important part. That's why we're also including information about test status, created defects, and created defect corrections. A test manager, of course, would more use than the test suite dashboard to make their deeper analysis. But for a program manager to really get the overall view on the project, of course, it makes sense to include that information. Okay, this just as a short introduction to the new solution readiness dashboard. As said, planned release will be, or is right now, SP12. Okay, and with that, I would now kindly ask Reiner to take over to cover the part for SAP Cloud ALM for implementation.
Okay, thanks, Joerg. Good presentation and great demo. Thanks a lot. So the next almost 1 hour, I will give you first an overview on SAP Cloud ALM for implementation. Then I will give you also a quick introduction on the individual capabilities, and then also I will go in more details to the reporting capabilities, analytics, and special use cases regarding the traceability views that we have implemented in SAP Cloud ALM. So first of all, the introduction of SAP Cloud ALM. SAP Cloud ALM is the go-to platform, as Joerg mentioned, at least in the next 10 years, where Solution Manager will have a limited time frame for being in standard maintenance. Therefore, it's already today good to think about it when the right move will be. And as for the Solution Manager, we provide a full collection of entities to support implementation process, starting with a design. The design is fully supported by content that we get either from the SAP Activate colleagues for the different implementation solutions, but as well for especially the processes, we get the best practice content for each solution. That is the starting point to define what could be implemented and to perform also the fit to standard workshops. If you decided what should be implemented, you then starting on defining on how it should be implemented, how it should be built to make the technical design. And if that is confirmed, to also implement it and to test it. And after a successful test, to deploy it. The differentiation of Cloud ALM compared to Solution Manager is a quite more integrated way of working. We can connect directly the individual entities to each other. We are open, so we also provide APIs. That means you can also take over some parts outside the Cloud ALM and integrate with other tools like Jira, like with some Scrum board tools and so on. We will have integration options to test automation tools. And also we can support the complete deployment. Not yet for all SAP solutions. We come to that later. So starting with the design in more detail, we will provide for a lot of solutions prepared best practice content, means these are the processes that SAP has defined as a kind of starting point and as a basis to the fit to standard workshops. If they are not satisfying your needs, you can create own process, but you can also, since one of the last innovations, were able to use the best practice processes and copy it to the custom authoring capabilities and just enhance them to your own needs. That was a feature that was asked for quite some time, and it's finally available in the productive environment. And after you have performed or during the fit to standard workshops, our idea is, especially if you want to innovate on top of the SAP standard, to collect the requirements on which processes you would like to implement and also describe what should be on top of the standard and to define a kind of initial backlog. For the execution, we have then a lot of project activities which are also fueled by content, means we have for each flavor of an implementation, like S4HANA Cloud, S4HANA Private Cloud Edition. We have in S4HANA Cloud now a flavor also called 3SL for a 3-system landscape, where you can separate between the project and the main line. And all this is supported by roadmaps, which can directly be used in Cloud ALM as so-called template tasks. And these will then be generated out of the box in the project. And you can also extend your own tasks. That means any organizational activities you want to manage as part of your project, you can create also on top project tasks. If you want to drill some task into more details to separate to different users, you can also create subtasks for each entity. Like for a user story, you can also create subtasks. User stories are more meant to implement than functionality, either with configuration activities, but also, of course, if you want to develop something on top, either in the private cloud edition of S4HANA, or if you are on S4HANA Cloud, you might be want to enhance something using BTP. Also, that could be done. We have a fully integrated planning and reporting capability. I will show you that later on in detail. But if the execution comes to an end, of course, it's a matter of ensuring the quality, especially if you want to innovate or extend the SAP solution. Then, of course, user acceptance tests should be done, but also integration. And finally, if you have several rollouts, also regression tests. We have implemented already a manual test approach with a step-based solution that you might also know from Solution Manager, Focus Build, Test Step Designer. We have a little bit simplified solution in Cloud ALM, and but we also can integrate automatic test execution engines, which is currently available already for S4HANA Cloud. The test automation tool as part of S4HANA Cloud can be integrated into Cloud ALM to also support any test activities, either for an upgrade or also for new implementations. And then we have a capability with features and releases, which allows you to orchestrate also deployments to your productive environment, but also if you have private cloud edition to the quality assurance system, and finally to the production system. And in Cloud ALM, we speak more about change enabling rather than change control, because it's more open solution that could be then be controlled some by with the traceability features that we have in place. And in any case, we support also audit trails. That means every activity that is done in Cloud ALM, you find a history, who has done what, at which point of time, for which entity, and so on. The Cloud ALM has been designed in a very flexible way. That means if you see that some capabilities already fitting to your needs, then you have the choice to use them or not. That means if you think about process management, you say, okay, I want to take care about the best practice processes, and I want to also model my own processes, and that's fine for you. You can use that. If you don't want to follow up them with requirements, but just user stories, that's also an option. That means you are full flexible in selecting which capability you would like to use or which not. Um, but what we would like to say is the full value out of Cloud ALM you will get if you use everything in an integrated mode. That means if you start with the process management, defining your processes you would like to implement, maybe you enhance them with the modeling capabilities, then you're creating requirements, then you are executing the fulfillment of the requirements with user stories, with additional tasks, you will do the testing, and then finally the deployment. The full analytics and traceability capabilities will support you in do the governance for the whole implementation in a much different but simplified way compared to focus build. Also here I have a similar slide that Joerg showed, that we show this different capabilities like the process management that could be used as a starting point using the best practice processes. We have at this point of time just a limited capability for documentation, which we call nodes. Next year, it is planned to have a more advanced solution for solution documentation that is currently in design and in realization. And here on the left below part, we have the SAP Activate task templates. That means we are reusing the Activate roadmaps and can just reuse them as task templates to use them within the project. If you are implementing S/4HANA Cloud, there is also a central business configuration tool where you can also integrate related projects to Cloud ALM projects, and you can follow up these activities by task within Cloud ALM. The standard way of implementing is that you would create requirements for each process. It could be either one or several requirements. That is a matter of taste because the requirements is quite flexible. What you need to consider if you drill down and break it down into user stories, that we recommend, at least if you want to work in an agile mode, that a user story should be able to be completed within one sprint. That means either you need to set the sprint time frame in a certain granularity, or you need to make sure that the user stories are in a granularity that fits into your predefined sprint duration. If user stories has been implemented and maybe tested on a unit test level, there we have also test management capabilities where you can create test cases based on project, based on requirements. If you would like, also based on user stories, but typically for user acceptance test or an integration test, we say integration test for the process and a user acceptance test for the requirement. You can directly link them. And out of that, you get also the traceability. The same we have available for the features. The features are the entity that you might know from Focus Build or Solution Manager, which is change documents that are linked to the transports. And here in Cloud ALM, we call that feature, where you can connect either a requirement or user story to features, which then has a collection of transports that should be deployed together in order to get a user story or a requirement live. And the whole thing is connected to our analytics and traceability solution that if you work in this integrated mode, then you have the full possibility to report on all the activities and also can do a combined reporting. I will show you later on what that means, combined reporting with the traceability views. But first of all, I want to show you this picture, which is very useful if you plan to start an implementation project on how the different entities in Cloud ALM could be used for orchestration of your implementation activities. Let me start with the project. The project typically exists of the typical SAP Activate phases, starting with the discover phase, where you select which solution should be implemented. You prepare in setting up maybe your starter environment. The explore phase, where you perform the fit to standard workshop, looking on the processes, maybe looking into the starter system, in evaluating does the standard processes fit to your requirements, and if needed to follow up then with requirements to be created in the Cloud ALM. That means within the project, we have a organizational setup with teams and certain roles. The roles can be defined outside the project. That means you have common roles across your whole organization. And you can use these roles within the different teams that are part of your project. So this could be used as an organizational setup. And for each task, for each user story, you could assign a team or a direct assignee. The scope is used to collect certain processes that belongs together. Either you collect them according to the LOB you want to support with this project, or just a functional selection of processes. Also, you might find out if in the SAP best practice content, we have also solution process groups, which several processes are grouped in a certain area like sales, like manufacturing, and so on. And this is also what we have in our system, where we do the exercise, some predefined scopes that I prepared for you. And based on the prepared scopes and the assigned processes that has been assigned to the project to be implemented, then we can create requirements. The requirements are meant to define a backlog on all the requirements from the business perspective. The user stories are meant to define the related solution. That could be either one user story per requirement, but typically you would break it down to several user stories, especially if you have different teams to realize parts of a requirement, then you would split it up into different user stories. And also if a user story is or the requirement is too large to develop it within one sprint, you might have two user stories. That one is developed in sprint 1, another one in sprint 2. And if all user stories has been completed for a requirement, then you can think about testing. Also here we have the option to either create just one test case or several test cases, where you might have different test cases for different countries, plants, or any rollout organization that you want to support on these test activities. For the acceptance test, you can create different test cases. Starting next year, we will also support test plans supporting different cycles based on the same test cases, that you can run 2 cycles for the same test cases. That is an approach that at least larger customers are asking for. And the feature is used to collect all transports that are part of the feature and should be somehow fulfill all the developments that has been managed with the user stories and subtasks, that these are bundled within a feature. And if you want to make release management, you can also define a deployment plan with several releases. And then you can even deploy several features that should go live at the same time within one release, and put and also integration test would be something then you would do on a complete release. Now we're going to the different capabilities. Just a quick overview within the demo, and in the exercise we will have a much detailed view. So for the analytics, we have on the one side an overview page that is also quite customizable, where you can hide certain cards if it's not interested for your role. At least if you are a test manager, you will not be interested in all the different task management activities. But on the other side, if you are a PMO related project manager, you would be interested in all the tasks and the progress of these tasks, and might be the defect management and the test management might be not so relevant. So it's possible also to customize that. And then we have also some detailed analytics capabilities, where we can, on the one side, have these kind of burn down charts for testing, but also for task execution. We have traceability views, where you see the current status of your requirement and related entities. Like requirements has several user stories and several test cases and maybe one feature, and then you can see and filter on the requirements related to the other entities. And you can also have the possibility to track progress with these kind of line charts, but also here we have different options to visualize the progress. Also for the defect management, we have here nice capabilities to support a project manager. As I mentioned, the Cloud ALM is one of the capabilities that make full use of the predefined content from SAP Activate. And for each flavor you want to implement, you get a kind of roadmap that can be assigned to your project, and then it's used as a kind of template tasks. And these tasks you will directly see in the task list, and they will be pre-assigned to certain roles. These roles are also coming from the Activate content, that typically creating users and these kind of things, or preparing a fit to standard workshop. These are assigned to certain roles. The due dates will be coming from the phases the tasks are assigned to. You can also change these assignments. Also, you can change the due dates based on your own needs. You have a full capability of changing tasks in a mass edit way, like Joerg showed the mass change capability. We have the same capability in Cloud ALM for tasks. You can create your own manual task, assign it to an assignee. You can assign it to a certain time box. And we have also the possibility to switch between a list view, like this one you see here, and a Gantt chart view, which is then using the phases of the Activate roadmap, but also if you have defined releases, sprints, and so on, you will also see that in the Gantt chart. The other content that is provided by SAP is the best practice content for the processes. And here you get predefined process models. You have the value charts, and you can just use them for your fit to standard workshops. And if they are not satisfying your needs, the business needs, you can copy them, or you can even create some completely new diagrams and make your own processes. And here we have the full capabilities. What is nice in Cloud ALM, all the activities that are modeled within a process flow can be just reused as activities also in the test cases, as execution test actions. And then the customer is also able to have an own content authoring environment to either use a copy of the best practice process and enhance it, or you start from scratch in developing your own flow diagrams within that. As mentioned, you can use these diagrams and these process flows as starting point for creating your requirements, but also as starting point for creating test cases. Also here we have history of changes and tool capabilities that you know maybe also from the modeling capabilities inside Solution Manager, solution documentation. Coming to test management, we have here also the full support of cloud solutions, but also on-premise solutions. So here we are not limited to cloud. That means it's quite of generic approach. As soon you have defined your processes, you can leverage the processes in defining your test cases. And we have not a tight integration into the managed system like we have it in Solution Manager. So we don't know the executables yet in Cloud ALM. We just know the activities as part of a process. What you could do is then you can also do it for SAP and non-SAP. So if some SAP capability, some non-SAP tools are part of an SAP-centric process, no problem to also cover this. At least for manual testing, that is already available. For automated testing, currently we only have the test automation tool for SAP Cloud for S/4HANA Cloud available today. Next year, Tricentis will be most likely finish their beta phase for Tricentis Cloud solution. That is also then part of the usage rights of Cloud ALM, at least for SAP solutions. And customers can also then subscribe to Tricentis full license if they want to also cover non-SAP for automated testing. And other vendors like Worksoft are also planning to support our open API for test automation. Therefore, there might be some other vendors that will follow in supporting Cloud ALM and will integrate. SAP itself, we will not plan to make test automation as part of Cloud ALM, but as mentioned for S/4HANA Cloud, the test automation tool is already part of the S/4HANA solution and can be integrated and can be managed and orchestrated from Cloud ALM. And the same approach we will allow for third-party cloud test automation providers. Deployment is currently done with features, as mentioned. So within the feature, you see here the screen of a feature. You can assign transports that are fitting somehow to the related entity, either user story or requirement. And so you have the possibility to deploy all related transport at once. Currently, it's not possible to create transport out of the feature capability, but that is also on the roadmap, that you then could do the full control from creating transport in releasing them in deploying them to the next system, like from the dev system to the QRS system and later on to production. And as mentioned, you have the full history for trial audits. Here we come to the solutions that we already are able to support for the deployment. One is CTS for S/4HANA on-premise. So this is a standard CTS integration that we also support from Solution Manager. We will have the same integration for S/4HANA Cloud Private Edition. And on the right side, we have currently solutions like SAP SuccessFactors, Business Technology Platform, Fieldglass, SAP Ariba, that are supported by Cloud TMS, and Cloud TMS could be integrated to SAP Cloud ALM. So it means if you create transport in Cloud TMS, you can also manage them out of Cloud ALM using the features or the releases if you want to do release management. On top of that, if you want to use release management, we have also a nice visualizations of the releases combined with the projects. That means on top of here, you see in this example, we have defined 2 releases that are across projects. And then below, we have here our example project that we use for also for the exercise called TechEd 2022. Where we have certain phases, certain sprints defined. We have here 2 deployment, 2 realize phases and a small deployment phase defined. And for each realize phase, we have 2 sprints. And also what is nice here, you can also see if you are having S/4HANA Cloud as your best practice and content assigned, you will also get notifications on when there will be new content, and you will also even have the possibility to navigate on some what's new information, and release impact assessment means which processes will be impacted by the next release. You can here find all the information on that. Now we're coming to the one of the recommended process flow, especially if you want to transfer to a cloud, S/4HANA Cloud Private Cloud Edition, where we recommend to use the full requirements to deploy process, which starts at the process level. So you can select here either a complete process or a process flow. So one process can have several variants of process flow, and you can select for which one you want to follow up with a requirement. You will create the requirement, and optional, you can also say, okay, each requirement needs to be approved in a combined way with business but also with the project team, in order to set, okay, yes, we want to implement it. It's worth to do that. If you don't want to do that, you can say also we skip approval, and you can directly starting the implementation in realizing the requirement. And here we recommend to start with creating a feature or several features, then creating the user stories. You can optionally also create project tasks for each requirements if you have more some organizational things to be done, but linked somehow to complete the requirement. So here we would like to differentiate everything that is part of the implementation of software or configuration of software should be managed with user stories and features with the transports, and everything that is more organizational, that someone needs to set up a meeting to clarify something, we recommend to use project tasks. You can assign it to someone, and then you could also manage it and see it in the traceability for the requirements if you want to make or report the progress of a requirement. You complete the project task if you have one. You can split even the user story down to several subtasks. You can complete the subtask, you process the user story, complete the user story, and all the development artifacts or configuration artifacts that are created and assigned to a transport is then also assigned to the feature, and then could be deployed to the quality assurance system in private cloud edition of S/4HANA. That makes sense to have also a test system there, because you most likely also want to drive innovation on your own. And also, therefore, it makes sense to create test cases. As mentioned, you can select a process that you have created the requirement for as a baseline, and you get all the activities into the test case. You can then set, if the test case has been prepared, you can set the requirement ready for test. And you can execute the either acceptance test or functional integration test. We have a full integrated defect management process where you can track also the test cases based on related defects. You can manage all the defects. You can assign the defects to assignees. And if all defects are closed and test has been done successfully, then you can deploy the feature to production, and finally also confirm the requirement. The big difference to focus build is here that we have no constraints in switching statuses from one status to another one, except the feature. For the feature where we have no way back, if you have deployed something into QRS, it's not an easy way to get it undone. Therefore, here we don't have a kind of flexible status schema. Here it's a straightforward. But for user stories, you can switch directly from created to completed. You can set it in process and so on. In test case, we have somehow some guidance, but for defects, it's also quite flexible. For subtasks and project tasks, it's quite flexible. What we also do not have, that we have an automated switch of statuses based on status of related entities. That means if we see that, for instance, all user stories has been completed for a requirement, the feature has been deployed to QRS, it's not automatically setting the requirement to in testing, for instance. This is done manually, but fully supported with the traceability features that I want to show you in some minutes. Before showing the traceability, I want to show you some capabilities within the system. So here we are in the launchpad of Cloud ALM for implementation. And you see here also some links to supporting information like support portal, where you get overall information on Cloud ALM, but also we have expert portals for implementation. And here we have the actual capabilities. And the best way to start with Cloud ALM is the overview page, where either the project manager, an architect, or the project members are seeing the current status of the project. We have seen that someone has created already another project. I want to switch to our example project that you could also use for the exercise. And here we see also some interesting information on this card. You will see the overall project status on track that is set manually. You see the overall progress regarding tasks that are open, tasks that are in progress, tasks that has been completed, and you see which phase we are currently in and when this phase is planned to be completed. So it's quite soon. So just 11 days remaining. We have here also some overview on tasks that has been assigned to certain phases. Like here we have overall progress, realize phase, but we have no tasks assigned dedicated to deployment phase, realize phase, wave 2 yet, but that might be done later on. What is interesting for the current status is you have an overview on overdue tasks, tasks that has been not assigned to a person yet. You have an overview on open defects that is related to the test activities. And if there are blocked tasks, that means there might be some showstoppers that has impact on other activities. You will also see them here directly. For a project for a project member, maybe this card makes more sense. Here you could see, okay, there are 4 tasks that are assigned to me directly as an user. But also you see there are 120 tasks assigned to my role. And totally it's 174 tasks. So quite good information also to use this overview page as a starting point for a project member to see, okay, what is overdue, what is assigned to me, and maybe start also then working on the single end elements. You have here an overview on upcoming events that is using the phases and different time boxes, but also if there are some upgrades planned for S/4HANA Cloud, for instance, you will also see that here in the upcoming events. Here you have a distribution of tasks by status, but it could also be by type. Here you see template tasks, project tasks, or user stories. So you see here that user stories are somehow also treated as tasks. And you can also see priorities, which we always have here in our example as medium priority. You have task distribution to different scopes. Here you see we have some examples of scopes as for finance, as for sales, as for manufacturing, as for HANA OP. Most likely someone else has created that has not been defined in the preparation. But you see here, there have been already assigned some processes to these scopes. So for sales, we have 6 processes, finance 5, and for manufacturing, we have also 5 processes. And the second column shows the assigned requirements for the processes, which is also an interesting information. What I would like to show you is how you start creating some artifacts in Cloud ALM. We use here an example project, lean management of change process, in starting kind of fit to standard exercise. That means we are looking on this process, checking the process flow. And this is a quite simple process flow. If you are happy, you can just use it as it is. Or if you are not happy, you can here use the copy diagram button and then change, add your own steps and whatever. And in this demo, I will just follow up it with the requirement. So I will here use this create button, and you see here we have certain options in this example, and you see also there are some already assignments done. I will create a new requirement for that process. Then you will get the requirement screen. The title is defaulted. You can change that. And here you would enter the description. And you can then follow up it in creating the user story. So this is the one I just created. It's still in refinement. So you will see it in the status here. And then you can follow up it in creating user stories and also feature for this requirement. As we are quite late in time, I will skip this in the demo and will continue with the slides to explain for the next exercise. That means let's assume we have done our fit to standard exercises. We have completed the phase. We have collected all the requirements, and we will want to check if all the requirements has been approved, that you can somehow prepare the realization phase of your implementation. And here we have now the traceability view for requirements, where you can set then certain criteria in how to select these requirements that are ready for approval. You can either use the requirements app itself, or you can use also the traceability. In this examples, we use the requirements management app directly. I will show you that also in the system. You can select, you can either go to the main page and then you go to the requirements. You see here on the left side, we have also a navigation part that simplifies the navigation. We can use the scope at any place to allow to filter on a certain scope. Most likely a whole project, implementation project of S/4HANA is divided in several sub-projects. In Focus Build, we call that main project and build projects. And here you can divide your scope using the actual entity scope, where your processes will be separated in scopes, but also all follow-up activities like the requirements are also separated by the scope. That means if you select in manufacturing, you will only see scope requirements for manufacturing. If select finance, you will only see requirements for finance here in that list. And to come back to the actual exercise, that is also part of the exercise we have provide you in handout, is you want to filter on all requirements that are still in approval. That means we exclude all others. So it's in approval. I will exclude the scope, but the requirements should be approved already. And then you now could start in going into the requirement and now start creating user stories and features for that requirement to follow up the implementation. The next one would be you want to make the preparation of your testing. That means you have now completed your user stories, you have deployed your features into QRS, and you want to check if your requirements are ready for testing. And here we have also a traceability view now, where we have predefined some criteria like the requirement is still in realization. The test preparation of all assigned test cases is set to prepared, and all user stories has been set to done. And that could be done by the traceability view. I will also go here into the tile itself. So here, the tile here is analytics, or in the left navigation bar, you can use this icon, and then we see requirement traceability. First, you see all requirements of your project Then you start in selecting requirements should be in realization. The related user stories should all be done. That means we have either one of the user stories can be set to done, but we want to have only requirements where all user stories are completed. And the same for the test preparation. We want to see only requirements where all test cases are prepared. And then you see here, okay, for this requirement, we can now set it in testing, going back into the traceability view. What you also can do, because the filter is lost if you're navigating back, you can define your own variants, which I have done already here. That exactly shows the requirements that fulfills the conditions. So you can set here the filters. And if you want to now, you can even directly start test execution from here. So you start here going into the test execution. You can click on the execute button and then you will see all the test activities. I will show you in the edit mode how that looks like. So these steps that you see here were coming from the customer returns process, where you are still able to navigate to the original process flow, which is shown here. Quite complex process. And that could be used also for test execution. Going back to the last step. So most important step before you deploy, you want to check if everything is ready for deployment. And also here, I jump to the requirements, traceability. Now I check the feature which is currently in implementation. And the user stories are all done. And test execution all passed. That is important. And now you see here, you can directly navigate to the feature. You can set the feature to ready for deployment and later on also then import the transports to follow up this. And then you can also set the requirement status from in testing later if the feature is deployed, also to confirm like it is done in the complete process that is indicated here, confirm requirement. So yes, we see that the time is already completed, but you have here now the option also to start with the exercise. The exercise contains some checks on the overview page that you can go through, but also the traceability views that I just showed you, you can run on your own. If you like to create your own content, please create your own requirements, but please do not change statuses of existing requirements. Otherwise, because we're all working on the same users in the same Cloud ALM tenant, you might destroy the use cases that we have prepared. Therefore, if you are interested in creating your own content, please create own requirements, create features, create user stories for them. You can also create your own scopes, and then you can also run different use cases with the traceability as they are shown and described in the exercise. Some additional information we have to bring so additional source learning material for focus build. We have provided in the slides the links to the overview, get started, and so on. S/4HANA conversion project, where we use a readiness check, deployment and release. So all the material, you have 5 links here. We have also communities you could join. like the SAP support portal. We have wikis. We have also an email address where you can send questions to Focus Build or Focus Insight. And for Cloud ALM, we have also information where we have links on Find Out More for Cloud ALM. You see here what is planned in the next quarter, for instance, for Cloud ALM for implementation. You can request your tenant. Within Cloud ALM, we have also a feedback button where you can provide feedback on the capabilities, learning what's new. Experience it. There's a demo system also you can access. So now you have the TechEd system available for checking out the Cloud ALM, but later on you can also use the demo system that is available publicly, help portal, and also an email address you can use for contacting us. And now we would have maybe some time for Q&A.
So Reiner, all the questions that have been raised in the chat have been answered.
Okay,
And
great.
yeah, as said, we have copied this also to a Word document on our local machines, and we will, I think we are going to publish then also these questions. So we need to talk to the TechEd team for some details, but I think we can publish them later on also in the GitHub or in a separate blog post.
Yep.
So maybe you can just jump then to the last slide.
Yep.
Some information for all the registered attendees here. When you check that link, learning.sap.com/TechEd, you have the possibility to access learning journeys. You have the access to live sessions to upskill your knowledge. So these are free of charge possibilities to get knowledge in different areas. And as you have registered for the TechEd, you also get some discount on certification offers that SAP is providing. So you have the chance here to save some money when you are going to go for certain certifications. Yeah, and with that slide, we want to close then also that session. Thanks to Frank, Evan, and John in the background for answering all the questions. There were some challenging ones also, but yeah, thanks for all your effort, and also thanks to Reiner for the great demo, and also thanks to the TechEd team that was making all that possible. And with that, we want to close that session now.
Yep.
So thanks a lot for attending.
Also, thanks from my side. Have a nice evening, day, whatever. Bye.
Good night. Bye.